Hi, I'm Aurin and today I want to explore with you the low profile switches that I so far tested out, and I want to help you finding the right switches for your keyboard because it is not that easy as I thought it is. Let me bring you on the journey how I found the switches that I'm currently using and what to consider and how to find the right switches for you. My first low profile switch was the gaon Blue, and they are very clicky, as you can hear. They are super loud and the click force is around 52 grams. So it is not that heavy, but also not light. And the thing is that every switch has a different profile of like the actuation force, basically how much force you need to push onto the switch to trigger the switch itself to send basically the keystroke to the MCU. And there are now these optical switches where you can basically set the point of actuation yourself. But in the mechanical switch world, you have this tactile force. And that force basically defines how much you need to press on the key before the keystroke is sent to the computer. And there are two forces. So the first one is the actuation force and the second force is the bottom out force. This means that if you click the switch at 52 grams, it is clicked. And then you need another 15 grams to press it down to the bottom. And the profile is very different for each switch. The thing is that even they have the same force, they can feel very different. And 52 grams in tactile feel very different than 35 grams on linear. So this is a clicky switch. Then I have a few tactile ones, like the sunset one, for example. It has a force of 40 grams, but still it feels a bit heavier than the 50 grams of Clicky. So this was my first keyboard, and I soon realized I cannot use it in meetings, I cannot use it in the office. I'm impossible to use except when I'm coding alone at home, because this is super annoying when you have your coworker doing this while you're talking and you constantly hearing this clicky noise. So that's why I had to not use it anymore. And then I moved on. My second switch were the linear switches, the red linear ones. I really hated them for my feel. I was like, damn, the clicky ones feel so good. And now I have this linear switch. And honestly, when you get started with a linear switch, it's very different feeling because you don't have this bump of now I click the switch. So it's like, you don't know, you just bottom out every time. So the thing with the linear switch is usually you just press it till you are on the bottom with every keystroke, but the key will be activated before you press it to the bottom. And that's why I had a lot of mistypes in the beginning. So I had many mistypes, I was like not satisfied at all, so I moved back to the brown switches. And let me tell you, the brown switches, I have them in the corn. They have this middle feel. They are a bit mushy. They bottom out really quick, but still you have a bit of a bump. So I was like, yeah, it works. It's kind of okayish for me. They didn't feel right because they didn't have this clear, noticeable bump. They still had this bump, but not noticeable enough for me to be satisfied with it. The browns ones are around 50, but they feel heavier than the clicky 50. So that's why I moved on and bought myself different keys. And this time I was going back to the MX switches, the higher ones, and these are the Aqua Cream Blue. They are also around 50 something, but they have this clicky feeling without being clicky. So for me, honestly, from a box switch, they are still my preferred switches over all other switches that are MX switches. So the high ones or the MX ones. The Aqua Cream Blue, still my favorite switch of all time. But I want to have a low profile keyboard because I'm traveling a lot, or at least I'm going often to the office. And yeah, for all of the back and forth, I need a low profile switch that basically packs very tight. So I got the Ghost switches from Low-Free, and they are around 45 grams of actuation force and tactile. And I thought, this is the perfect amount of tactile force. And they feel really good because they have this full palm bottom. Like they feel quite like a big one, but still tactile. And they are too heavy for me. 45 grams is just too heavy for me to work all day. And not because my fingers are weak, but because I am using home row mods. That means that I press a lot of keys and hold them. So you hold them down for shift, you hold them down for control, like for all different kinds of actions, you hold the keys down. And that tires your fingers really fast, especially the pinky and the thumb got tired quite fast because the thumb does a lot and the pinky holds often the control. And that's why the 45 grams with this, like they were just too heavy. And I also had the Pro Red switches. They are linear switches with 35 grams, so 10 grams less. And they feel definitely better, but I had again a lot of mistypes because I'm not very comfortable of like typing a lot, 10 fingers. I do it a lot and I'm at around 70, 75 words per minute. And I think that's fine. That's more than enough for my daily work. Everyone was commenting in Reddit that the sunset switches are basically the holy grail of switches. These are the best switches you can get. They feel like the MacBook switches. And I really appreciate the MacBook switches. That's why I was like, yeah, what the heck? Just order the sunset switches. I just ordered the sunset switches and they came after a few days and I just put them into my avocado board and immediately had the feeling of, oh, these are nice. These are really amazing switches. They are at, let me check, 40 grams tactile switches. Amazing switch if you want this tactile feeling. Again, 5 grams less than the low-free one. And I was like, yeah, that's the thing. That's amazing. That's the perfect switch. After 2 weeks of using it, I just got tired with it. Again, same problem as before. My fingers get tired. And if you see, they feel very different. Even so, they are both nearly the same. The Sunset has a very noticeable tactile bump. So you really feel when it hits this tactile bump. And the low-free one has a bit more squishy, softer tactile bump, but they bottom out a bit easier. Anyhow, you also hear the difference. The Sunset versus the low-free. Sunset, low-free. They sound a bit different. And also they feel different. Even so, on paper, they are quite similar. So even so you press a single key and you're like, that's an amazing key, they feel so good. They feel very different in the keyboard and they feel very different when you type all day on it. And if you have them one by one and you compare one clicky switch next to another one, it feels like you can see how it feels in a keyboard, but you cannot. You have to build the whole keyboard to have the feeling of how is it feeling to work with it all day. I used the Sunsets for 2 weeks. I moved back to the Pro Reds and I just got the love of linear switches. In the beginning, you don't like the linear switches. In the beginning, you should have something like a tactile or a clicky switch, and you get to use to how a mechanical keyboard feels, how split keyboards feel. But like time by time, you found the love for linear switches, or I did. But it might be very different for you. So try it out, try different switches, and let me know down in the comments what's your favorite switch. The Kali Perps are next on my list. They are 25 grams linear, so even lighter. And that's also one thing. If you have very light switches, you cannot like lay your hands on the keyboard. But because I am having a very low profile keyboard, this one, I mean, look at it. It's very tiny, very low profile. I don't have any issues of hovering my fingers or like slightly touching the keyboard compared to like this Akku one. This is like very high, so you have to lay your fingers down, and then you have way more mistypes. So with this one, I'm very comfortable around 70 words per minute. With the Tactile, I was like 75 to 80, so it was a bit faster because I was more precise. But working all day is not all about being fast or having less mistypes. It's being about how you enjoy it, how you feel while typing. And for me, The Pro Reds are just the ones that I prefer while typing. These are the ones that I'm currently really love. But what are your favorite switches? Which one would you choose for a low profile keyboard? Let me know down in the comments. And yeah, without further ado, I wish you a great rest of the day, a great weekend, a great week wherever you are. Let me know down in the comments what your thoughts about the switches are, and happy coding.